and how it interacts with your body, then you're a long way into understanding what ultra-processed food is. This is Diet Coke labeling from the United Kingdom, but this is more or less how it's marketed around the world. This gets 4 green traffic lights on the bottle. So this isn't just a health food. This is the healthiest product you can possibly buy. Very few foods get 4 green traffic lights. It's a sparkling, low-calorie soft drink with vegetable extracts with sweeteners. Let's read the ingredients. Carbonated water, fine. Now, caramel E150D might make you think of creme brulee, of traditional treats, of 19th century French cooking. In fact, it has nothing to do with caramel. It's carbohydrate being put through a set of industrial processes using chemical modifications with acids, alkalis, and heat. It contains ammonia, it contains sulfites, and you can read more about it on the WHO Committee on Food Additives website. There are sweeteners, aspartame and acesulfame K. Now, aspartame hit the headlines recently because of concerns that it seems to be carcinogenic. There's some nuance about that. I'm not very concerned about its carcinogenic properties. Much more important was a very significant paper published in one of the world's leading scientific journals this summer, Cell. And it was an analysis of what the non-nutritive, or we call them artificial, but the natural ones do the same thing, is what non-nutritive sweeteners do to our health. So we now think that if you look at the independent studies, the non-industry funded ones, there is something that seems to be really tricky for the body. When you put sweet taste on the tongue, which you haven't just evolved for fun, right? We've really evolved a sophisticated internal system for detecting what food does. So when you taste sweetness on your tongue, it prepares your body to receive sugar, to receive refined carbohydrates. And humans have been eating significant quantities of refined carbohydrates for many, many millennia. When that sugar doesn't arrive, it seems to cause problems. So people used to think that the problem was that you released insulin, and that dropped your blood glucose, because insulin lowers blood glucose, and that made you hungry, and you then went and ate more carbohydrates, and that might be why they don't seem to promote weight loss. It seems now from the research this summer that a lot of them actually increase your blood glucose, and we're not really sure why that is. It may be part of a stress response. The brain is a prediction engine. It's constantly making predictions about the world. And when you get a mismatch between a prediction, like sugar is on its way, and the sugar doesn't arrive, there may be a stress response. No one really knows, but the artificial sweeteners, according to the World Health Organization, and I think the best evidence, don't seem to be metabolically superior to sugar, and they don't seem to be linked to significant weight loss. And that is a huge problem. There are natural flavorings, including caffeine. I mean, I would frame caffeine as an addictive stimulant, but, whatever you like. There's phosphoric acid. Now, it's particularly significant for the people-born women in the audience. Phosphoric acid doesn't just dissolve your teeth. It can also leach minerals out of your bones and reduce bone density. And citric acid will also dissolve your teeth. This is not a healthy product. It will not help anyone lose weight. It is a way of commodifying ill health, I would frame it as. So let's look at the logic of UPF. This is what I want you all to start doing. In fact, what I'm sure you will all start doing is you're going to go out of here and you're going to start reading ingredients packets. Some of you may already be obsessively doing this because there's been a lot of coverage about UPF in the last 6 months. You will notice that themes, tropes emerge as you read these ingredients lists. They all start with commodity crops. We only eat a tiny number of plants. Our carbs come from 4 plants: rice, corn, soy, and wheat. They might be mixed with some commodity oils. There's a short list of them. There's palm, sunflower, some mixed vegetable oils. You take those crops, and this is the Mato Grosso in Brazil, by the way. So that's primary forest on the right of the picture, and then on the left is the soy plantations. So you grow these crops at scale. They're often fed to animals. Corn, soy, they're animal food. And you take leftovers, and to add value to them, you put them into the human food chain. So you break your crop, whether it's corn or soy, you break it down into powders of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Now, to assemble, they have a nearly infinite shelf life, and they cost very, very little. You can ship them all over the world in enormous quantities. Now, to make them edible again, you can mix them with a little bit of meat if you want. We eat 3 animals mainly. You could mix them with some fish, but primarily we just eat beef, chicken, and pork. But you then need the additives. In the UK and in Europe, we have around 2,500 additives that we use in food, and they're somewhat regulated. In the United States, there are between 5,000 and 15,000 additives. No one has a list. The FDA, who regulate or supposed to regulate additives, don't have a list of all the additives that are added to food. But the additives broadly, the ones you'll notice is they emulsify and they stabilize. They bind those basic ingredients together and they create textures, and then you can press them, extrude them, fry them, bake them, and turn them into any shape you want. But these ingredient lists will be the same from your breads to your cakes to your puddings to your pizzas to your ready meals. They will all have the same basic ingredients patterns. Cheap crop, additives to make it edible. So let's look at some examples. Now, some ultra-processed food is really kind of obvious. I've used the word junk there. It's a bit pejorative about Miss Molly's, but some of it we might casually refer to as junk food. And you'll see there on that list of ingredients, we start with some dairy fat, and then there's this reconstituted whey powder. Whey powder was a waste byproduct of the dairy industry for a long time. Adding it used to be spread on fields or fed to animals. Now it's, if you can add it to food, it has huge value. Glucose syrup, sugar, dextrose, so 3 different kinds of sugar. Palm stearin, palm oil, palm kernel oil, different oils, emulsified, stabilized, flavored, and colored. Palm oil, of course, is a traditional ingredient. Many of you may have eaten it it's used widely across West and Central Africa where I've eaten it. There's a bottle of it there. The palm oil, palm stearin or palm fat that you'll see on your biscuits and in almost everything you can read is nothing to do with that spicy red traditional liquid that you see there on your left. It's been through an edible oil refinery, and there's a picture there in the middle. They look like crude oil refineries, and it's turned into, that's palm stearin on the left. So using processes of refining, bleaching, deodorizing, interesterifying, and hydrogenating, you can take any oil you want from any palm. You'll see mango kernel oil on your biscuits. You'll see shea oil. You'll see coconut fats. You'll see palm fats. You put it through the RBD process, and you can create any melting point, any texture, anything you want, and it all tastes of nothing. So it becomes a way of adding fat to food that is extraordinarily cheap. But a lot of ultra-processed food is sold to us as being healthy. So I've used an Eat Natural bar, but almost all of these snack bars that are marketed to us are in fact ultra-processed. There's a Nutri-Grain bar marketed as strawberry. There's a picture of a strawberry there. It's just 5% strawberry. And it's that same list of cereal flours, vegetable oils, sugars, all stabilized and emulsified together. This might be my favorite example because this was my favorite sandwich for a long time. And this is a brand that we associate with organic food, with good health. And I'm constantly having a debate about what the riskiest kind of ultra-processed food is. Is it the stuff that we know is harmful for us? Or is it this stuff that we think is probably quite healthy, but which contains mono and diacetyl tartaric acid esters of mono and diglycerides of fatty acids? Now that's datem, that's one of the most common emulsifiers that means that almost all the bread you buy in a supermarket will be ultra-processed food. In the UK, ultra-processed food is now most of what we eat. 60% of our calories come from ultra-processed food. 80% is typical for teens. 1 in 5 people in this country get 80% of their calories from ultra-processed food. For many, many people, particularly those living in disadvantage, those with low incomes, this is the only food that is available, and it's the only food that's affordable. And we have libraries of data on that. And there's often a politician who is happy to explain to us that lentils or porridge are very cheap to buy. You can make a meal out of pasta and some tomatoes. And what's never factored into that calculation is the fact that you need energy to cook that food. You need skills, you need a chopping board, you need a knife. You need to make it in quantity. No one makes a bowl of pasta. You need to make it in quantity, put it in some Tupperware that you need to buy, stick it in a chest freezer that you don't have. Real food is fantastically expensive. It spoils very quickly, and time is money. It takes a long time to prepare it. So never let anyone tell you that real food can be made cheaply. It is enormously expensive.